Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to session 8 of Human Resource Management course. This is your instructor, Dr. Shikha and Khera, faculty at Delhi School of Management, Delhi Technological University, Delhi. We have been discussing about the HRM subcontents, and in the last session we closed on discussion with respect to evaluation of training program, where we discussed Kirkpatrick's evaluation criteria of reaction, learning, outcomes, etc. And during that time, we had discussed on the job and off the job training methods. So that was about operative trainings. This session will deal with executive development. You understand, students, the environment of business is highly turbulent and volatile. It is ever changing, change is inevitable, and during these times, the organizations have to develop future leaders with the acumen of managerial skills, strategic thinking, even in today's time, highly creative design thinking and effective decision-making skills. So I'll try to impart knowledge today in this session with respect to development of executives in the organization, which tomorrow help in having succession planning and have a good successor for the organization. So the definition of executive development includes systematic process of enhancing managerial skills and leadership capabilities in the individuals. Who is a leader? Leader is a visionary. He has a big picture of the organization. And we always say that leader sits on the top. Why leader is on the top and how come he gets a big picture of it? Just imagine you are standing on the ground floor of a building and you are seeing the green grass land outside. What would be your vision scope? And if I ask you to go on the first, second or third floor of the building, how you can see that green grass now? And what is the scope of your vision now? I'm sure you will agree that vision at the higher floor was much better. By seeing that, you could have judged many things about the grassland, and you could have decided your path for future, that which path to follow to cross that grassland. Same is the case in the organization. The leadership or leaders who sit at the senior positions have a better, broader exposure to the knowledge and content. They are exposed to various experiences which enable them to have a visionary thought process. And thus, we need to have such executives in organization who develop or who inculcate in themselves the leadership capabilities. These executive development programs enable those enthusiast existing senior management people or employees who can be tomorrow's leader in the organizations. So executive development is not just about training, but it is about long-term growth within the organization. It includes formal training, mentoring, coaching, and self-development. The focus is on preparing leaders or for greater responsibilities. Objectives of executive development include improved leadership skills. So when we talk about leadership skills, they are the captains of the ship. They have to have the right direction. They have to steer the wheel of the ship, steer the wheel of the organization. So that means what happens when a captain is actually steering the wheel of a ship? Captain has the knowledge to identify the winds. And through the direction of the wind, he decides which direction to take for the ship. Now, where does this knowledge of the wind comes from? This knowledge of the wind comes from the huge explicit and tacit knowledge or information they have or they carry. Similarly, the executives who are at senior positions, they have to be given such information so that they are in a position to decide the direction, how the external environment is moving, how the socio-political environment is moving, how technological environment is moving, what is the competitive landscape, and how within the given ecosystem they can take their ship, take their organization to greater success and height. This can be taught during the executive development programs. Enhanced decision-making ability. This decision-making ability is the most sensitive ability that any leader must have, because an effective decision can lead to success, and ineffective decision can lead to even liquidation, bankruptcy, or closure of the organization. What exactly, every day now we all are doing, we are deciding, nothing else. We are deciding on what to do, when to do, how to do. And it becomes more responsible for someone who is at a leadership position to take appropriate decisions. It prepares for higher responsibilities. So leadership or executive development is not only about that you are going to lead to the current organization and keep it at the pace, the way it is moving at this point in time. The more and higher responsibility is of expansion and growth of the organization in right direction. And for that also we have to prepare our executives for tomorrow. Fosters innovation and adaptability. So innovation is the key to success, a buzzword in today's time. If you are not able to innovate in your organization, you are stagnant, you are not in a competitive mood, you will remain in the red blood ocean. To move into blue ocean strategy, that is going into the new market, you need to have innovation. And this innovation, along with the adaptability of the existing technology and know-how, all these things together make an executive a complete successor for future leadership role. Characteristics of this phenomena of executive development is that it has to be continuous process. It has to be continuous and dynamic process. We cannot have a stationary process for executive development, because the environment we are surviving in or the organizations surviving in is not static, it is dynamic. Executive development is future oriented. Always the leaders have to be developed keeping in mind how future is going to look like. It involves both training and education of the executives and focuses on managerial effectiveness. So managerial effectiveness is when there is a means-end chain relationship. Means have lowest possible wastage and ends have optimum outcomes. And during this means-end chain, the goal has not been diluted at all. So such managerial effectiveness is achieved when we train our executives appropriately. Needless to say, the need for executive development is because of rapid technological change, global competition, succession planning, employee retention and motivation. I believe in that this is rapid technological change is something we all understand very well because of a lot of investment by government and private organizations. Both research and development is proliferating like anything. So as a result, rapid technological developments are coming up, especially in the field of computers, AI, machine learning, etc., wherein the bots or robots are taking up the roles of human beings. Global competition. Now the nation's boundaries have been shrunken, and as we know that the world is becoming one common place and inter-boundary transit is becoming easier and frequent by the transport system and by the political systems across the nations. As a result, trade is becoming very comfortable across nations. And when the trade becomes comfortable across nations, competition becomes very high. For the similar thing, you are getting same, say for example, a mobile phone, you are getting from your neighboring countries, you are getting from different continents, you are getting from very far off continents also. So that means the same product is very competitive market present, and thus one has to be very proactive in taking the right kind of decisions as executives for the company. When it comes to succession planning, executive development is highly solicited because the leader, once he gets retired, he needs to give the baton to someone who is equally eligible to take up the race. And here you have to identify a successor who's going to be an executive tomorrow, who's going to be leader. And this succession planning takes long number of years. It's not 1 or 2 year job. It takes around 7 to 8 years by you identify someone and groom that individual to take up that leadership position. Employee retention and motivation, because those who are star performers, they need some good amount of motivation and baiting from the organization. if you give them this opportunity that they may be considered for the role of senior executive or C-suite roles, which we call as CEO, COO, CFO, C-suite roles, then they are very much motivated to remain in organization. They do not try much outside the organization for higher level jobs, and they remain retained. And with retention, their commitment also increases. So this is a win-win situation for both organization and organization members. Thus, these parameters of rapid technological change, global competition, succession planning, and employee retention and motivation are the main key pins because required for executive development. Under the process of executive development, identifying developmental needs is the first step. So who needs that? As we did need analysis in training, here we have to identify what kind of developmental needs are there with respect to the executives or senior managers. Based on the need identification, the second step is considered as establishing the objectives. Once the objectives are established, because we know the need clearly, we now move on to which method or program we would be using to give or impart development to the executives. Here also we have certain similar kind of methods like on-the-job and off-the-job methods for executive development. We shall be studying soon. Once the training method is identified, implementation of training is done. Now, when we talk about implementation of training, the exact training process or executive development process takes place. Here, imparting of knowledge takes place. And once that is done, again, the evaluation and feedback of the training given is carried out to find out whether the development of the individual is at par with what was expected when we started off with identification of development of needs. So here we have certain similar on-the-job executive development method, where one of the methods is coaching. Under coaching, one-to-one coaching or a group coaching is given to the executives on latest business environmental conditions. Then job rotation is also done so that the executives get to know about what is happening at various job levels, and they can have their own repository of information with respect to all divisions and departments. Then committee assignments can be given to them. They can be members of different committees, high-level committees, where some problem solving or some new assignments to open up a new division, department, or new plant altogether. Understudy system is also given so that they can understudy the existing leader and work very closely with the existing leader to learn how the leadership phenomena works. Under the off-the-job training methods, again, they are exposed to case study method, where real-time cases are discussed with them. Some sensitivity training and T-group training we have already discussed in the previous sessions. So they are also exposed to this training in order to have a good mental health. Then some university and executive courses like renowned universities have what we called as EEPs. EEPs are executive education programs at various colleges. Then we have EMBAs, that is Executive Masters in Business Administration. We have PGP programs for executives. So various universities are conducting those programs which are off-the-job methods which executives can undertake to develop their acumen. Then we have management games and simulation exercises. With the help of management games and simulations, we try to impart the concepts in the individuals and help them develop their skills. Now, after discussion on what is executive development and what are the methods, how it is going to help, let us talk about what are the advantages of having executive development programs in organizations. So these advantages include building leadership pipeline. So it's not only one person, we are building a pipeline of successors because it's about human beings, and human beings are highly unpredictable. You know, when you groom an individual, it's not a complete guarantee that the person is going to remain with the organization for the tenure you wish to have them on board and then give them the leadership position. So always to mitigate risk, it is better to groom multiple individuals and see that during the times when it is coming closer to give them the titles, who or amongst them, which one or who is the most suitable candidate. So we have to build leadership pipeline, then improves decision making of the executive as it is the key criteria to take up leadership roles. Then it boosts employee morale and retention, we've already discussed, and enhance overall organizational performance, which is the ultimate goal of any organization. Challenges in executive development execution is that it is quite high. It has high cost involved in it, because when it is executive development, you may have to hire renowned experts to impart development. Resistance to change can be seen on the part of the employees, now on the part of the executives. Now, what is resistance to change? Resistance to change means that whatever they are performing right now, they may not be interested to change their portfolio. They may not be ready to go for training programs. They may take it as boring assignments. So they may resist towards any change that the management is planning for them. So that becomes a potential challenge or limitation towards success of executive development program. Then measuring effectiveness can be difficult, that how to measure that the development imparted to the executives, how far have they learned, how far can they take effective decision making. Though we are using case study method, simulation method, but by that we cannot be 100% sure of having the effectiveness, while the real time challenge will come up in the executives working pattern and how they will handle it. So measuring the effectiveness of such executive development programs is little challenging, because they do not have to do any kind of technical work which can be measured and quantified. They have to work in the concepts. Balancing work and training is little difficult, because executives are also already holding key positions. With these key positions, it may be challenging for them to handle the training simultaneously. Then how do we evaluate the executive development program? As we have discussed just now, that measuring effectiveness is little challenging. So then we have to see that how do we measure it, how do we evaluate it, so that we are very close to the real-time effectiveness or outcome of that training or executive development program. So we can have one pre and post training performance sessions. By this, we will get to know the enhancement in level of the executive after the training, how good he has become now in his managerial decision making or strategic thinking. Then feedback surveys will enable us to understand the executive's point of view and their state of mind. Return on investment analysis can be based on the decisions that they undertake or the job performance they do after the development program. And long-term career progression is something that can be one of the criteria to evaluate, that okay, this individual was given executive development and he has progressed to quite high. That means the development program were highly effective. So there are organizations like Infosys and GE, and they have leadership programs. Like Infosys has a leadership institute, GE has leadership development programs. So these organizations, which are quite big in terms of their setup, they have definitely invested in the development of the leadership, because they know that this effective leadership only can take them to the new heights. Future trends in executive development includes use of AI and digital learning platforms for giving executive or imparting executive development. Personalized learning paths for individuals, which can be with the help of AI and digital learning. Global leadership programs, which different leadership summits also take place. Various renowned organizations organize these and focus on emotional intelligence and soft skills of the executives. This is extremely important to have soft skills and emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? Now, emotional intelligence is not only understanding your self-emotions, understanding your team members, subordinates and seniors' emotions, and then having a balancing work pattern for all together and taking the right decision. That is emotional intelligence. You are emotionally stable. Emotions are in control, not for self, but also for others. And you are being little empathetic, sympathetic towards individuals and trying to put yourself in shoes of others. By doing this, you will not take a decision within any lack of knowledge, rather you are taking decisions mindfully. So when you take decisions mindfully, you tend to be emotionally intelligent individual. And soft skills include your interpersonal skills, your team building skills, your communication skills, or your behavioral skills. So all these need to be intact when you want to become an executive, because you have to deal at a greater level. Coming on to what are the areas wherein the executives are developed. So they are developed at decision making skills, we know by now. They are developed at interpersonal skills, we also know this. So this interpersonal skills leads to harmony in the team or in organization. They are developed into job knowledge. Just this job knowledge enables them to take right decisions. They are developed in the area of organizational knowledge that helps them to take correct path, specific individual requirements, and general knowledge. This general knowledge is the breadth of knowledge which is required to carry out the job. So this is an organization and job knowledge is depth of knowledge. Both are required to carry out the task well. Now, what factors to consider in designing an EDP program? So, whenever we are designing an EDP program, we should see that learning characteristics and its applicability to the design. What are the learning characteristics of the group, or you may say that learning characteristic of the individual who is being exposed to EDP. EDP here is Executive Development Program. People who are being exposed to EDP must know the results, that this is what we have to achieve, and the trainer also must know the result, that is the outcome they have to achieve. Outcome to be achieved. Reward mechanism should be very clearly mentioned so that people know what is going to be their benefit after they learn. Individual differences of the learners to be kept in mind while planning for the executive development program. Application to the work environment is necessary because it gives that practical exposure. And meeting organizational goals through content design is the final achievement to be done. So these factors to be kept in mind while we design an EDP program. Methods of EDP, they are very much similar to that of training program, but here the contents may be different, and the you can say the level of the content also is much higher as compared to the training. So we have coaching, job rotations, special courses, special projects, committee assignments, business games, case study, role play, and sensitivity training. Though they were already there for the training of operatives or technical training, but they are with the different magnitude, they are also utilized for EDP as well. Now, evaluation of EDP is definitely very important. Why is it important? Because it helps in improving the quality of training and development process. It improves the efficiency and competency of the trainers, also makes improvement in the system to make it more responsive. Now, what do we mean by more responsive system? Here we are responding to the environment outside. As you know, students, that the organization is a replica of a social system, which is an open system. Now, what is an open system? Where the system has smaller subsystems within it, which are interrelated and interdependent. Together, these small subsystems make a unified whole, which is a complete system, which is an organization. And this organization, when interacts with the outside environment, we call it as an open system. So since organization is an open system, there is an environment outside. So the leadership positions or executive must develop that acumen to respond to the environmental conditions effectively. Aligning the training objectives to organizational objectives and evaluating the return on investment and account of training and development. So if you have invested X amount on training, how much percentage gain have you got after the outcomes have achieved? Outcomes achievement means the executives or the employees have performed well. How far have they performed well? Changing the perception of management as to regard training as an investment. This is very important. The evaluation will help management have this thought process that it is something important phenomena to invest in EDPs, and only the outcomes can bring in a trust in the mind of management or leadership that we must put in some money in giving the executive development program, which is going to help enhance the return on investment of organization. Now there is one more method which is called as ISD, Instructional System Design, which is valuable for developing high performance training programs. So this is used both in the case of trainings and executive development. What is instructional design? Instructional design is an analysis. There are 5 steps to it. It is generally called as ADDIE model. A stands for analysis, D stands for design, development, implementation, and evaluation of the instructional materials. So there is a standard design model called instructional system design. Why we should use a systematic process? Why? Because it is an effective way to develop, ensures an appropriate process, flows from goals to objectives, to content and to instructional strategies. So this is how, goals are transformed into objectives, objectives into content, content into instructional strategies, and thus we achieve the final outcome. Includes evaluation to ensure that goals and objectives are met. Under instructional design, it is an end-to-end process or method which is used to create a learning program. So instructional design, if we try to understand it in a layman's term, what does it mean? We are designing a program which will give instructions. Instructions will help or enable you to learn. So the document of a design for a specific program, for a specific skill set. The major phases are summarized as ADDIE. It is a comprehensive model for instructions, and there are other models and lot of theories. A methodology is better than a model. This is a methodology. So under this, first A stands for analysis, design, development, implementation and evaluation. Let us see one after the other these steps. Under the analysis part, we do the need assessment, project planning and goal identification. After that, once we know which goal is to be achieved and what plan is to be made. Now, do you know, students, how managers work? Managers have 2 tools. What are the 2 tools with which managers work? These 2 tools are goals and plans. And what do managers do continuously throughout their career? They establish goals and they develop plans. Establish the goals and then they develop the plans. So this is a continuous process goes on. So under this ADDIE model, A, analysis, stands for identification of goals and development of the plans. Then D is the design part of it. As you know, designing means framing something. So we are framing a skeletal system for an instructional program. So here we have to first identify the audiences. Who are the audiences for whom we are making this instructional design? What is their individual difference? What is their level in the organization? What jobs they do? What are we making to prepare them for? So, know your audience is the first step under the design part. Second is the objective. After achieving these instructions, what will they learn out of it? Third is task analysis. The task that they are supposed to do after getting the instruction, we should know it well, because when we know the task as instructor, then only we can tell them or teach them how to conduct that task. Fourth is the strategy building part of this particular instructional model, and fifth is the prototype to be created for the design. This prototype will help managers decide whether they want any variation or they want to proceed with this particular design. It is accepted by the authorities and they can move ahead for development process. The third step is development of the program. What we designed about, now we are going to develop that. So outline of the content that has to be delivered, select the delivery mode and method, and programming part. So all these are done in the development phase of the ADDIE model. After the development phase, we move on to the implementation phase, and here actual delivery and integration of what was thought and what exactly is being delivered takes place. And finally, we go for the evaluation plan, testing and reviews of whatever we had designed and developed, whether that worked well and whether the implementation was done properly or not. This enables us to identify for the future need assessment and goals identification. Now, certain types of trainings which can be imparted to even executives also, depending on their levels, and these trainings are interchangeably used for operative trainings as well and executive trainings as well. Out of this, one of the first training is the skills training. Now, what does skills training do? Skills training focus on the job knowledge and the skill. Here, instructing the new hires and overcoming performance deficit of the workforce is the main concern of skills training. Under the skills training, individuals are exposed to the real-time case examples. Retraining, maintaining worker knowledge and skill as job requirements change due to technological innovation and organizational restructuring. Under this retraining, the employees are already existing and working in organization, but due to certain external changes, they need to be trained again. For example, you were working on a particular language and for coding, but now the advanced language for coding has come up. So your employer will take you to the training or developmental scenario where the new language will be imparted or given training on, so that now you develop codes based on the new language. Then comes cross-functional training. Now, what is cross-functional scenario? Cross-functional means you have 10 departments in organization. They work independently, but here we want you to know multiple departments and their functioning. So we are telling you or imparting you training or developing you on multiple departments. So say if there is a textile industry. In textile industry, we have weaving division, we have dyeing division, we have yarn division. So this spinning, weaving, yarn, all these divisions are working in different pattern, but if we try to impart training in all three, then we are making an individual holistic learner about the whole textile industry functioning. So cross-functional training is training employees to perform a wider variety of tasks in order to gain flexibility in work schedule and improved coordination. When one person knows what the other department is doing, so the person also knows the challenges of other departments. So he becomes more compassionate towards those individuals and tries to understand their working pattern well, and thus they can coordinate very well with each other. Then comes training, that is team training. So team training is training self-directed teams in the organization. Now, what are self-directed teams? Which are leaderless teams. They do not have any manager who's guiding them. Rather, they are working of their own. Only the manager is imparting information to them from far off place. So it is something like, 4 different people in one team. Maybe this is a team, for example. This is the communication they are making with each other. All two-way communication between 5 members, and this person is giving instructions once from outside, rest the self-managed team has to work of their own. So self-managed teams focus on developing management skills, coordination skills and cross-functional skills. Then comes creativity training. Creativity is though something which cannot be imparted just like that. It is quite tricky in nature. For example, if you have to tell your employees that please produce 100 units in 1 hour, these are the machines we are giving you. Based on the resources that you are giving them, you also know very well that it is easy or it is doable for them to create 100 units of jeans. That is possible. Production is possible. But can you tell your employees that create an advertisement in 30 minutes or 1 hour? They may, but not necessarily that is creative enough to actually impact the audience. So that here the point I want to emphasize upon is that creativity training is not easy to impart and not easy to develop this creative acumen, but still it is required for executives to be highly creative, because we all understand management is a science as well as an art of getting things done. So art part is the creativity part. This creativity directly leads to the innovation abilities, innovative learning techniques to enhance employees' ability to spawn new ideas and new approaches. And new idea is something which every organization is right now looking for. Then comes literacy training. Now, under literacy training program, it focuses on improving basic skills of workforce such as mathematics, reading, writing, effective employee behavior such as punctuality, responsibility, and cooperation. So here, literacy, literal meaning is learning the basics, that is maths, reading, writing, etc. But why so? Along with that, we want the employee to be literate on how to behave in the organization. Every organization has a code of conduct, and that code of conduct has to be followed by all. That code of conduct includes behavioral pattern in which the employee has to behave. For example, the organization says that the organization time is 9 to 5 and the employee is expected to punch his attendance by 9:15 every day. Now, the behavior of few employees is seen by the manager that they come late every day after 10 or 10:30. How to address this problem? If you become harsh with them, there is no gain probably out of it. They may think of leaving the organization, or they may become all the more stubborn. So it is better to give instructions in black and white, that is make rules, that is giving them training also by following the rules. Initially give them behavioral training that punctuality is solicited, please be punctual, otherwise it disturbs organization culture. If they abide by it, fine enough. If they do not, then the company has to come up with some policy, like somebody who comes late 3 days after 9:15 and within, by 12 noon, after that 1 day of leave will be deducted. That way the modification of behavior may be done on the part of the employees who are creating nuisance. Next is diversity training. So it is about instituting a variety of programs to instill awareness, tolerance, respect, acceptance of persons of different race, gender, and different background. So nowadays we have a concept of DEI. You know, students, what is DEI? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is much important so that everyone is treated equally at par with each other and equal opportunities are given to all individuals. Thus, the training to be more patient towards other caste, creed, race, and gender is must for individuals in the organizations so that they have some amount of tolerance and compassion. Customer service training is something which is generally given at the lower executive level. So training to improve communication, better response to customer needs, and ways of enhancing customer satisfaction is very important. If the customer complaint desk or customer response or customer relation desk is not handling the customer well, then probably it is damaging the employer brand outside. Employer branding inside is with the internal customer and outside branding is with the external customer. So the internal customer has to well take care of the external customer, and thus focus should be on customer service training. Executives are also developed by simulation exercises. So simulation exercises is learning through realistic scenarios. And what are simulation exercises? Simulation exercises include business games, crisis management drills to provide safe environments to practice decision making under pressure. Let us have examples for these business games or simulation exercises. Business game is primarily for strategic decision making. I will just highlight one business game to you. It says, first game is a group of executives is given a simulated company with limited resources. So this simulated company is a hypothetical company and it has limited resources. They must decide on product launch, pricing of the product, hiring of people, and marketing. So you can see multiple decisions to be taken by the executive here. Through simulation, the outcome is participants see the impact of decisions on profitability, market share, and employee morale. So all these, product launch, pricing, hiring, and marketing, all these four are related to the profitability, employees morale, and market share. So example can be, if your company says that we have to launch a new kind of iPad wherein few more features have been added and the student need not write it exactly, whatever the instructor is saying, the iPad is listening to that and creating notes out of it automatically. If that is the feature to be added on, then the simulation is that what kind of cost will be incurred into it, how to market that, and how to keep the morale of employee high at the same time. So a kind of write-up will be made by the executives to solve this challenge and come up with a feasible planning of such innovation in the product. Second way to develop the executive method can be crisis management drill. We all understand what is crisis management, any contingent situation. And drill is a mock drill which takes place to replicate that scenario in artificial settings. So example here is, executives are presented with a simulated cyber attack or PR crisis. Example, customer data breach. That can be a very critical situation. So they must coordinate response strategies within a strict time frame, since it is a crisis situation. So they do not have much time with them to think over it. They have to immediately respond to this scenario. So what can be the outcome? Outcome can be, it builds skill in quick decision making, and we also identify those who are capable of doing quick decision making for succession planning. It also helps in communication under pressure and cross-functional teamwork. How you work promptly with different functional areas and in coordination in sync with them. And in crisis management drill, most important aspect which is tested on the part of executive is his ability to take decisions under pressure scenarios. Next is the negotiation simulation. So negotiation is something wherein we have across the table discussion on certain terms and conditions or certain financial outcomes. Example is, two teams act as buyers and sellers negotiating a merger. Each team has hidden interest and objectives. Now what is a merger? When company A and company B, they decide to be together and create a new entity, company C. This is called as a merger. And when merger takes place, there is integration of everything. Integration of not only financial, integration of infrastructure, integration of human resources, and at a broader level, integration of culture of the companies also is to be done. So this company had a specific culture, this company had a specific culture, and together these two companies make a new culture. So integration of culture also takes place. Now, what can be the outcome of such simulation exercise when two teams, buyer and seller, are negotiating with each other? It enhances persuasion, conflict resolution, and win-win negotiation skills for both the parties. And when they are actually negotiating, they are in a position to find out that how conflict resolution can take place. Then we have wargaming / competitive simulation. Under this scenario, executives split into company A and company B. Each competes in the same market, making product, pricing, and expansion decisions. While they are making these product, pricing, and expansion decisions, the outcome is to encourage strategic thinking and anticipation of competitive behavior. So this is very dynamic field of having product decisions and expansion decisions, where you have to completely, from a 360-degree angle, you have to study a competitor. And this competitor, how he is moving, what is his average, above average return, what is his core competency, what is his competitive advantage. You learn from all aspects, and then you decide upon that how he is going to behave tomorrow and how should I take, what decisions should I take for expanding. Then leadership role simulations include a participant plays the role of a new CEO addressing a resistant management team about major organizational change. Organizational change is also inevitable. Organization has to change over the time, and resistance to change is also inevitable on the part of the employees. So now this new CEO, who is hypothetically a CEO, has to see how he can mellow down the team members or the other party who is resisting to the change, not accepting the organizational change, what OD interventions he would like to come up with. And with the organization developmental interventions, is he able to resolve this resistance to change or not? So the outcome would be test of a leadership skill here. Test of communication skill, emotional intelligence in a realistic scenario. Some new perspectives on executive development include there are certain cross-cultural approaches, maintenance of standards, interaction with the learners, use of technology, that is e-learning, and informal learning, self-paced leader-led learning, and performance support tools. So these new perspectives on executive development help us understand that we can have developmental trainings on or developmental programs on approaches to cross-culture, how to maintain the standards for evaluation and achievement, interaction with the learners, use of technology, that is e-learning, and informal learnings which are self-paced. Now let us see what are the benefits of e-learning. So e-learning is while you are doing it through the online media, you are learning at your own pace. So you can take your own breaks, you can stop, intervene in between, and you can understand, and then you can restart learning it. Accessibility is completely at your hands, so easy for use. Active learning, because you will learn when you are fresh enough to learn. You are not imposed to learning. Cost effective, because it is at your doorstep through online medium. Collaborative learning can be there because you can collaborate with other members jointly. You can join online and learn. And personalized learning environment, you are at the ease of your office space or of your home space where you can learn the scenarios. There are certain weaknesses of e-learning also. Shift of focus to the learner only. Data overload to the learner, which is not necessarily required by him because it is not made for an individual, it is made for a very large public. Reliability of data is also a question mark, so we have to see the right platform for e-learning. Not every platform gives the right information. Network or hardware unreliability, so high reliance on technology may interrupt learning in between. Access control, whether you have it or not, that's a question mark. Whether you can access it anytime or it is something special time zones, timeline is associated with it when you can access, and less theory associated with it because it will give you an online perspective of hands-on training. What are some training and development priorities in 21st century? So it includes quality improvement programs. Now, what is a quality improvement program? Quality improvement program is where we are focusing on enhancement of zero error. When we have zero error and low waste, we have high quality. Quality improvement programs can be in the field of administrative fields, academic fields, technological fields. All these enable to add on quality assurance, and this quality assurance leads to high quality of organizational functioning. So training and development scenarios have to focus on quality improvement programs, then also to focus on technological change related programs with respect to training. Different technologies are coming up every now and then, so promptly the training programs have to be shifted from one to other based on what is going to be the future requirement for organizational functioning. Then customer service and T&D programs should be gelled well, since customer has always been the king in organization or for organization. His satisfaction is ultimate important. Training should be imparted to the employees and executive based on how to have good service quality. This good service quality will lead to higher customer satisfaction eventually for the organization. Certain emerging issues in the field of training and executive development are training is not equally distributed to all employees. Now, this is a point of concern for discussion, that organizations do not have equally distributed training programs at lower levels, at middle level, at upper middle level, or at higher level. The training programs need to be equally distributed in all skills like conceptual skills, technical skills, and behavioral skills, and the levels. So all this has to be merged properly. If I may print it here, it has to be like this. If we have lower level, middle level, and top level, and if we have three skills like conceptual skills, technical skills, and human skills. So all levels need to be imparted training in all the skills. Second, expenditure allocated to training is inadequate. So the companies or corporate houses, they have to see that they have sufficient funds to invest in the training programs. They should not become regular paperwork, just shuffling from one table to other. Rather, they should be practically implemented, and the funding to be adequate for managing these training programs. It is a long-term investment which will reap rewards after a couple of years or few years, but will give a good gain to the organization. So there is a mismatch between theory and practice, what is being taught and what is actually needed. The gap has to be filled with the help of some simulation and vestibule training exercises. Benefits of training are not immediately realized, that the organization or corporate houses, they have to accept this fact that if they give training today, the results will come after few years. So they should be patient enough to see how results are coming out and how they are going to give benefit, which training is more important at which point in time. Then comes supporting contextual systems need to be provided in organizations. So this means that organizations also must have the infrastructural support, the logistics support, and other support systems along with the financial support to impart training to the employees. And then comes top management needs to support the philosophy of training in spirit. Now, as we all know, everything relies on the leadership philosophy. If leadership is interested in getting involved and is committed towards training, then only it will be implemented in the true spirit. Otherwise, it will be just superficially mentioned in the manuals, may not be there actually in presence, and implementation may be very weak. So leadership has to plan for this executive development and training of executives at different stages of their career, which will help not only the organization but society at large, because the executives and the leaders or the other managers, they all are part of society, and by investing in their growth, we are not only favoring the organization, we are favoring the societal people as well. So students, we have talked about the emerging issues with respect to executive development. Let us study few more recent ways by which we can develop the executive. So one of the recent ways is structured insight. Under this method, the information about the expectations of managers from their superiors and their own behavior with respect to the subordinate is collected, and by that it is tried to have some change in the behavior of the executive who's being trained here. So this method is useful for changing the attitude and behavior of managers towards their subordinates. Also in this, it is identified which subordinate has an inconsistency in his behavior and how they are trained to remove the inconsistencies in general. Then the second method is multiple management. Under this system, a permanent advisory board or a committee of executive study the problem of organization and they make recommendation to the highest management for final decisions. Then there is another device that is constituting a junior board of directors in company for training the executives. The board is given power to discuss any problem with the senior board of directors constituted by the stakeholders and could discuss. So the utility of junior board is only to train the junior executives. Thus, junior board discusses wide variety of subjects which a senior board can discuss, or in other way, it is an advisory body. So here you can see the problem study and recommendation by the senior management is done with the involvement of junior board. The next exercise by which we can train the executives is in-basket technique. In the in-basket technique, in this, there is a basket on in-tray technique involves simulation of a series of decisions a trainee might have to make in real life. The trainee is presented with pack of papers and files in a tray and containing administrative problems and is asked to take decisions within specified time limit. So the decisions taken by several trainees are recorded and compared with one another. Learning occurs as trainees reflect and evaluate the decisions taken on the priorities, customer complaint, superior demand, irrelevant information and the like. So students, you can see that in in-basket training, the first hand scenario is given to the executive. Decide upon if there is a situation or a challenge given on a piece of paper kept in a basket. How will you handle this scenario? You have to come up with your own opinions. Now, along with these three, there is one more way by which we can, one of the latest ways by which we can make our executives highly competitive. So that can be conference and special meeting. Role playing also plays an important role in developing the executives. So with this, we may think of concluding this session, wherein executive development, we can conclude that it is an investment and not an expense. This is a very important statement from organizational perspective. Members have to understand it, and it is key for sustainable organizational growth. What is sustainable organizational growth, students? Sustainable means which can have a long-term benefit, long-term in terms of decades and decades and decades of benefit to the organization, and for such growth we need to have our executives developed. So I believe in this session you have understood the importance of executive development, concept of executive development and various methods by which we can develop them. For this particular session, I have referred to this bibliography. Please go through the books so as to have more insight on the concept of executive development. And I really thank you all for patiently listening to the session, and I hope it was a learning oriented one. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this piece of literary snippet. We usually know William Shakespeare as the most revered figure in the history of English literature. But we often tend to forget that he has also been one of the most hated figures in literature. And here I am not talking only about those boys and girls who have to memorize long sections from Macbeth or King Lear or Julius Caesar before they can go and sit for their school or college exams. But I am also talking about people who are themselves quite famous authors. Tolstoy, for instance, considered the writings of Shakespeare to be, and I quote, crude, immoral, vulgar, and senseless. George Bernard Shaw absolutely loathed Shakespeare, as he did Homer. But perhaps no other criticism about Shakespeare is more damaging than the one which says that Shakespeare is a marvelous storyteller, provided someone has told him the story earlier. Now, this piece of criticism is particularly damaging because it is true. None of Shakespeare's plays contain any original story whatsoever. They are all written using pre-existing materials, pre-existing stories. Now, does that diminish the stature of Shakespeare as a dramatist? Well, I'll leave that for you to decide. See you in the next episode of Literary Snippets.